I'd like to call the meeting to order. Everyone please join me in the pledge of allegiance in a moment of silence. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The meeting is being recorded, correct?
Yes.
All right. I'd like to move executive session to the end because I don't think there's anything that needs to be discussed in order to take a vote on. However, the possible retirement listed in our planning and zoning, I think, could be an executive session, mainly because it has to do with performance and such. So on the agenda, I think we could go, unless there's an objection, does anyone need an executive session? Okay. Then we'll go ahead then with the bonus for the judicial law clerk, the assistant public defender, the enforcement officer, and the temporary clerical support for the registry and recorder's office.
Commissioner,
Before that,
I'm sorry.
has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? Any comments, corrections? Hearing none, I'd ask for a motion to approve them.
I'll second.
Made by Munstgaard, seconded by Eggleston. No other discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Old items of discussion there are none. On to new items, judicial law clerk. Actually, why don't we go ahead and, yeah, we can take judicial law clerk. Kim, could you please walk us through your attachment?
Yes, so just right before this meeting started, the judge indicated that they have a new law clerk starting on April 1st of this year. So when I calculated this out, I only calculated it through the end of the year because I didn't know what was happening with the position.
Okay.
So the figure will change a little bit here. But so what I did is I took the payroll biweekly amount, and you had indicated before, Commissioner Kaplan, that there was a formula that we went by. So we took 1 month of absorbing the duties from her beginning the position to 1 month, because then that would then the formula would start. So we did. So I did 3 pays times the biweekly amount, which came out to the $54,1491, and then you divide that by half. So my amount that I figured out was $2,707.46.
Okay.
Now, if you look at what the judge had just presented, she gave me a little figure thing. It's going to be an additional 6 pays. So I don't know, but again, I just got that information, so that's not in the new sheets.
What I did is the same thing. I took the current salary divided by 26 pay periods, and it was $1841.07 per pay times 6 payroll periods prior to the hiring of the new law clerk. It was actually the week before, and that was $11,046.42 divided by 2 is $5,523.21, added to $2,707.46. The total would be $8,230.67 total. But I didn't have a start date for the new law clerk at that point. Now I do.
That's forward looking into 2022, right?
Right, correct.
So to some extent, we need to approve, but I would posit this number in order to be able to accrue it back to the 2021
Okay.
budget. So when we have, could we talk about the 2022 bonus in April, or closer to April, but still approve this today so that we can make a single approval back to the last budget?
It's fine with me. It's, I know for law clerks, they're living on shoestrings, but I understand your position. So I'm not going to argue with it.
Okay. Then do I hear a motion to approve bonus for, which law clerk?
This would be Alicia Millspaugh, hired November 1st, 2021, beginning with a bonus on the 3rd of December.
Okay, and the amount of $2,707.46, at least for the 2021 budget.
Correct.
Make a motion to accept the bonus as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays?
Aye.
All right. Motion, the ayes have it, motion carries. Next would be bonus for the assistant public defender. Again, Kim, would you?
Yes, so I sent out an updated schedule before we met. So same situation. So obviously we take the formula, the first 30 days, nothing is given. Mr. Kate vacated the position on August 25th. So that would leave us to 2 pays before the new public defender started as of November 1st. So that would be the pays of 10/8 and 10/22. So I took the biweekly amount of $2,692.30 times my 2 payrolls, which is $53.8460. Divided that in half, and it comes out to $2,692.30 as a bonus amount.
I had a different amount, and did that change?
Yes, it did.
I printed this early, so
And I apologize for that. I calculated all the way through the end of the year, not when Mr. Kinney started. So that was my error. I had that. You're welcome.
All right, so with the updated amount, $2,692.30, do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the bonus as presented.
Your second.
I don't.
Yeah,
like,
he does, public defender doesn't work for you, does it?
right.
Right. Commissioner Durbin, was that a second?
Yes.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Discussion?
So, for my part, the assistant public defender, sometimes we go back and forth discussing the validity of these on occasion. This is a situation where I call him Francis because I have a hard time pronouncing his last name, but the assistant public defender really went above and beyond in his position. Their caseload was already swamped to begin with. He was the only attorney working down there. I mean, he had some assistants from appointees and whatnot, but worked nights and weekends nonstop for 2 months. And frankly, I'm amazed that he's still here, to be honest, given the circumstances of what he dealt with in that position. So I think that a $2,000 bonus, considering the level of work, is very justified.
And just as a court, I would echo that frequently the court receives letters from inmates if they're unsatisfied with services, and I can tell you I received none during that time period, and that's an amazing feat. So I did want to pass that along to the commission as
You
well.
work very, very hard.
Yeah, no complaints is like, I don't even know, it's like Tom Brady numbers there.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Yeah, I'm just gonna say that I'm opposed to these, period. They're salary positions. In the public sector, if you're in a salary position, you work to get the work done. If people are out, you absorb the work. You don't get any compensation. So the taxpayers that are supporting this don't get bonuses. And I think we've raised the wages in the county over the last few years adequately, so I'd say now. On a clarification, you mentioned $2,000. I see a number here in front of me. Is it 2, Kim, or is it 9?
I sent out a correction prior to the meeting, and so I'm assuming.
$2,692.30 was the motion.
That's the correction?
Yes.
I got it, I just want to make sure which one.
Yes, the 2,000, yeah.
All right, I'm still opposed.
Quick response though, I've worked in the private sector in this county too, and we have gotten bonuses, sometimes Christmas bonuses, sometimes bonuses that seem completely discretionary. I disagree that universally no taxpayer in this county gets a bonus, ever. That's
Well, some will get a bonus, but in a situation like this, when jobs are eliminated and work gets loaded on you, you get the same pay. If somebody's out for a period of time, you get the same pay. You gotta suck it up and do it.
In some businesses, but not universally.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that that's, I think that your perspective isn't, you know, without merit. I think that there's validity in the concept of trying to be frugal and, you know, especially depending upon the situation in a business where, you know, a business is consolidated or has to shrink due to the market conditions. In this case, like, this is unutilized budget funding for these positions that are open. So there is, and even in that case, this is a sliver of that, you know, in the grand scheme of things. So, and I would say that, you know, having worked also in the private sector, I was under a salary position and had to work for someone who was out for months and months and months. And the management of the company was nice enough to provide me with a bonus that I didn't even request in order to make sure that I was happy and stayed, because they recognized that I was a quality employee at the time. You know, so it's not, I get what you're saying, I do, but I would, you know, on the flip side, there's a lot of really good arguments, especially with someone who's demonstrated and the judge can attest, you know, who's gone above and beyond, and especially with the assistant PD, that's a really hard position to keep and fill, just generally speaking. So I think anything we can do to keep him happy and satiated down there is a good thing.
But, and as Ben referenced as well, it's not like we're going to be over budget by giving these dollar amounts out. We'll still have a savings compared to all the overall costs that we spent,
Yep.
because those positions were empty for that period of time. So that's kind of my perspective on it as well. Plus, I do agree, I know, and I'm not so sure about the judicial law clerk, you could speak to that better than I, but I do know that Francis did a phenomenal job during that period of time, and like you said, for there to be 0 complaints, you know, is,
Well,
he really did. And he didn't have to do both jobs. He probably could have just let it all fall down, you know, and he did, and I appreciated that so much. But that's just my 2 cents.
I mean, technically, we got less complaints once he took over.
Yes, that is exactly true. Just in general, all on his own.
Yeah, on his own. That's how hard he
Yep.
worked.
Yep.
Any other further discussion? I'll call the question, and this is for the bonus for the assistant public defender in the amount of $2,692.30. All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Motion, the ayes have it, motion carries. Domestic Relations Office, who wants to?
Well, I'd have Carrie present on that. The hours are asked, we're asking for reduction in hours per position. If you want to present on that, thank you.
Well, let's say, everybody in the domestic relations office works 37.5 hours, other than the enforcement supervision position, which prior to 2016 was shared with adult probation. Because that person was probation, that person always worked 8 to 5. We severed ties with probation in 2016, so now it's just strictly a domestic relations position. There's a disparity of work between the enforcement officers and the enforcement supervision that needed fixed. The enforcement officers had more of a caseload. So the best way was to eliminate that position, share the cases, go back to splitting the work up and having everybody work 37.5 hours.
Okay. Now, you said currently there's how many enforcement officers?
There's 2.
There's 2, and there is as well a DRO enforcement supervisor?
He's not a supervisor. He was kind of filling the role of probation officer, but
Oh,
he's
that's
not
right.
qualified.
At one time, we had the
Yes.
split supervision, and then
Yeah.
it really didn't ever work well between the 2 departments because they couldn't agree on what
Yes.
to share in
Yes.
terms of the time.
Yeah.
Sharing is a hard concept.
It seems so
And
odd.
the current position just wasn't working out because the position wasn't a probation officer, so we didn't have the same leverage.
Qualifications.
And so it just didn't work out,
So
so.
you're asking for a twofold motion, one to
Reclassify.
okay, so remove the enforcement supervision officer, that's no longer a thing going forward. But instead create a new enforcement officer position,
Yes.
so there's 3. And then make sure that, well, actually, that position already is at 37.5. right?
Yes, everybody else.
Everyone is, so that would be, yeah, so that's a pretty simple motion.
Okay.
Okay, I think I understand, does everyone else understand? Okay, so we're asking for a motion to remove enforcement supervision officer and create a third enforcement officer position,
I'll move that.
with the understanding that that would be a 37.5 hours at 7 months.
A second.
Motion made and seconded, and anything else, any discussion? Seems simple enough, that would be a cost savings, right?
Yes.
All those in favor of the motion, please state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Is just a question, not for discussion, but is the enforcement supervision officer vacant right now?
It's eliminated. I mean, he's already started the position of enforcement officer, working the 37.5 hours.
Oh,
So
okay.
we just moved the work around, so that
Okay,
it's
got it.
more fair between everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the planning and zoning retirement has to do with a personnel issue that I'd like to talk about in executive, so we'll skip that for now and move on to temporary clerical support for the register recorder. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you.
By the way, so I forgot, I meant to talk to you about this before. The code that has to do with the salary board specifically says that when a row office has a position under them, they're either requesting or promoting a pay increase, change, that sort of thing, you specifically get a vote.
Okay.
So you are a voting member of the board as it pertains to this request. So tell us about your need.
Well, we are behind, and we would like some sort of support to help us get from underwater where we're at right now. All of the offices right now, including Register of Wills, Orphans Court, and Recorder of Deeds, have been held up by one full-time deputy and one part-time person. So we are behind in each one of those areas. I know that we can get there, but not with the staff that we have right now. So it would be great, even if temporarily, we could get some help in, maybe for a few months, just to unbury, especially the Register of Wills is way behind by approximately 100 folders or so. So if we could get somebody, I do have somebody who is willing to come in and help, who held that office before as a deputy, to help us unbury that office and make sure that it's back up to where it needs to be. So if I could get some temporary help in, or potentially down the road somewhere, maybe look at again a full-time deputy for Register of Wills. We can talk about that later, but the urgent need right now is to get somebody, if not a small task force, one extremely motivated person who's familiar with the office. Tracy Morrison is interested in that. She's worked as the deputy before. She did a great job. I worked with her, and she's open to temporary or permanent, full-time, part-time, whatever it takes to get the Register of Wills particularly squared away so that I can focus on Orphans Court, and Emily is doing a tremendous job on the Recorder of Deeds side of things. So it would help us balance out so that one person is full steam ahead in each one of those areas. Hopefully that makes sense.
So we had talked about it before. I know we had said that roughly, let's give it a 3-month pilot and see, at least that's what I was proposing we bring to this body.
Mm-hmm.
But we also kind of talked about a financial cap, so to speak. Did we come up with what that would be?
A financial cap?
Yeah, I mean, are we saying it would be 3 months full-time, or I guess I'm looking to craft this motion in such a way that there's a fiscal cap rather than, and I also want to preempt Denny's inevitable question, which is this what was this budgeted? I think the short answer is no.
No, but we talked about using records improvement funding to fund this. And they talked about it would be a union position, and we talked 3 months full-time was what I had in my notes.
Okay.
I would check and see if the records improvement funds are eligible for pay. For some reason, in the back of my mind, I thought we couldn't use records improvement funds for payroll purposes. We'll have to check on that.
It's in there, you can do it.
Can you?
Yep, we do. I'm the one who, I brought it up. And
Okay.
the only reason I even said anything, because I wasn't thinking that at all when I read this. Pam and I have been trying to work on the scanning everything. And so part of it is, you know, evaluating the records improvement funds and everything. And so the other day I printed it out and read the code and everything. And then that's when I saw the mention of that it can be utilized for that. It just generally isn't. Like, you know, so.
So I thought there was a stipulation.
Yeah,
I thought the way it worked is you couldn't use it to pay payroll, but you could use it to pay someone to scan. You know what I mean? You could hire a business, but you couldn't use it for a regular payroll, is the way but without reading it, which it was just my understanding from looking.
We can double check. I mean, I think that's one channel. Let's
Could
put
she
that way.
just be a 1099 person instead of on the payroll?
Yeah, because 1099 is going to be.
well, 1099 would be okay, except you don't have control. I mean, you wouldn't probably swear in a 1099 as a deputy, right?
Okay,
I would
That
assume.
was a question.
That was a question, yeah.
I don't know.
I guess I would just say, I would just throw it out
Yeah,
there.
you can't control that the same way you can an employee.
Secondarily, I mean,
Well,
part of the discussion was like, you know, like looking at the contingency or, you know, I mean, even there's a case, I mean, if we think that this is an emergency, like we feel like this is something that has to be done, you know, having a discussion about ARPA or another funding source for the temporary. I'm fine with it as long as it's temporary. Like, I mean, initially, because the whole idea is to see where we're at the end of those 3 months.
Yeah, we've done that for our offices. I was going to ask, but you brought up ARPA, I was assuming that you had earmarked record improvement fund for the scanning and whatever else for actual record storage. But I would assume that could be used for, that would be ARPA eligible, because we're making things available.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's what I mean is it feels like there's a few buckets so they could, you know, cross over. I
In
guess.
worst case scenario, we can use contingency.
Yeah, I mean, in any other situation, I'd be less interested in it, but this seems to be like an immediate need that needs to be addressed.
Can you quantify, you said you have 100 some folders, like how many do you do a month normally?
Most years are around 200 estates per year. There, in other counties, there's been more with COVID over the last 2 years, so closer to 300 in the last year or two. So if we're approximately 100 folders behind, you can walk in our office right now and there's
6 months
100.
behind.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
and that's just the registerables, those are just the estates.
All right, any other questions before we hear a motion? All right, then do I hear a motion? It sounds like the request is a 3-month deputy in the Register of Recorder's office, not specifying whether it's wills or deeds.
Sure, that would be fine.
I would leave the word deputy out, even though I'm not part of the voting on this, only because I don't think if it's a temporary employee, you want to
Right.
categorize that as a deputy in the office.
I was wondering about that
Yeah,
myself.
they could still fulfill
Well, Kim,
the job.
what, regardless of whether it's a deputy per se or not, what does the union contract call that position?
They are deputies, but if you created like an administrative assistant type person, because
There used to be one there.
there used to be one there. So if you bring them in as a deputy, you have to pay them the deputy rate. If you bring them in as an administrative assistant, the rate's gonna be less, so I don't know. And I did look at what Tracy was making before she left to pursue her education. She was making $13.60 an hour when she left in 19.
So I guess that's my other question is this shouldn't necessarily have to be a union position, it's a temporary position.
That's what I was gonna ask.
So for 3 months, we would contract with them.
Did you ask the union about that?
I did not, because I don't think, I mean, in my experience with them, to be honest, they're not gonna, they just want everything in the union, so, but I don't know.
Well, I mean, so the assistants for the elections, are they in the union?
No.
Yeah, I mean, it's specific in there that if it's a temporary position, it is not going to continue. If it was part-time permanent, then yes, but like the fact that it's only like 2 or 3 months, like, I think that if we keep it under 3 months, you know, like a day short of 3 months, there's nothing that they can.
When you say that, you mean the union contract says temporary, does not mean
My understanding of it has always been that if a position is temporary, like you know it's not gonna last, it doesn't have to be a union position. Like, you know, and if that's a stipulation in how it's set up, then we should just be able to contract with them. Like, if you're planning on getting a part-time position and you don't have an end date for it, then they're definitely gonna raise a stink about that. But I remember having this conversation like multiple times with them about this previously, especially like when we were talking about the help with the elections office, like the people who do the deer licenses and everything else, none of those are union.
Do we need to research it?
Well, I think we just need to define some terms, that's all.
Yeah.
So we were going for a temporary 3-month from start date administrative assistant position
I would, yes,
at
that is $13.75 as
a
of
rate of
2021.
$13.75 per hour.
Subject to change with the
So
contract.
what would that be? Is that person gonna work 37.5 hours?
No, because then they would be eligible for benefits, they can only work, they would only work 20 hours a week, right, is that what it is?
That was 24.
Is it
Yeah,
24?
24.
Yeah, 24, right.
Is that gonna work?
That's not gonna get her to where she needs to be.
No, not.
I mean, I've been in union situations where temporary employees weren't union.
Can we?
Can we make it without benefits?
Well,
If it's temporary,
I guess my thing is can we set this up, it'll be part-time, within the first few weeks, we'll know how much work they're capable of doing, you know, and then get another position, like come, you know, bring up a second position that can tack onto it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to, I'd be opposed to having full-time with benefits, but I don't care if there's 2 positions open
That's what I
the
mean,
next 3 months.
like, I mean, or I suppose you could do it that way if you felt fine with it.
And the max that would be $8,000. If you've got 2 people in here, 20 hours a week, you know, for the next 12 weeks. So it'd be just under $4,000 each.
If you're bringing somebody else in, we would have to start almost from zero though and teach them what to do. Whereas Tracy has the skill and the experience to take off running. And she would, I know she would, I worked side by side with her, she would put that register of wills right back where it needs to be.
Well, the issue you run into is the labor law and everything else, like, so if the person's full-time, then that turns it into a whole other
Oh dear.
whole lot.
well, could we make it an independent contractor? She knows what she's doing, right? She knows what she's doing.
Yes.
She's familiar with the role. She can come and go as she pleases.
Sure.
You could have an agreement with her that you say your expectation is, you know, having 1/3 of the backlog done, and that would be your contractual arrangement.
Mm-hmm.
And she would be a 1099 employee then. She would be a contractor, but you would send in the agreement what she needed to do, and she would do it whenever she wanted.
Well, I think the only challenge you have is she's doing work that the other employees generally do. Like,
Yeah, the
that's,
union could get upset about that.
yeah, that would be,
I think that would
Right.
cause an issue.
And they don't
Okay.
currently have a deputy register of wills though.
yeah, but the other people in the office do that job, do that work. Like, they file those deeds and they do that work. I mean, if you were bringing them in to just do scanning or just arrange the, you know, like do your categorization of books differently than what they current are, then that would be a contract.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you need assistance with the stuff that you've already got to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I don't know what, just, I mean, I get that you're gonna have to train somebody, but even then you're gonna get help. And I think that it would be good to have, you have the one person that knows what they're doing, even if they're here part-time. I mean, if in a few weeks it's like, okay, she's gotten this much done, we really need her to be getting this much done, you know, then we have, you know, I mean, you know, it's not, it's a situation that needs to be addressed, it's not a fire alarm fire.
Mhm.
Like, you know, I guess is what I'm saying, so.
I think we should bring her in and have her start and see how you do, because
Okay.
you need somebody now.
Yeah, we do.
Because you're
Yes.
sinking as time is going on.
We are, unfortunately, but we'll get there. We feel good about it.
Because you're gonna
We're
gauge how
all-
things are going, and like, by the time we have the next salary board meeting, you're gonna
Yeah.
have some type of idea, and
So
then we
there's-
can readdress it.
She would be addressing 100 files at the same time more are gonna come in at the same time and
Yes.
build on that, right?
That's the problem.
Okay, so, and I guess the other point being with the dynamics of this, she'll be doing work that a previous union position did.
Correct.
So that's where it can be cumbersome.
Okay.
Another practical problem with 1099 is the commissioners would have to prove that, and we don't have another meeting for another 2 weeks.
Gotcha.
You here to break up the fighting?
I have to be in court, so I can
Okay.
take my seat.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
See, I just ended the fighting.
All right, so what I think I'm hearing is a motion to create one temporary 3-month part-time position, administrative assistant at a rate of $13.75 an hour, after 24 hours a week, to end in 12 months from now, 12 weeks from now. Well, 12 weeks from the start, whenever you can, which sounds like it could be tomorrow.
Technically,
Yeah,
3 months is 13 weeks.
13 weeks.
Okay.
Just
You're right.
there's 13 weeks.
Any
of
help is
work.
good help, especially right now with her skill. I think that we have a lot to look into.
Well, we can readjust. I mean, we'll have another salary board here in a few weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'd just have her track her work and then, you know, so that you have a good idea of what
How much
she's
backlog?
capable of doing. Because you, I mean, I guess I'm just saying, you might be surprised. I mean, if that's the only thing she's focused on, if she's just tearing through it, maybe she gets more, if she's able to do more, I don't know.
Yeah, there's a little more to it. If you're familiar with supplemental billing, when an estate is open in the county, they give you an estimate of what the value is. Then as the estate goes on, they get a better picture of what it was worth. Then we do supplemental billing for that. We're a little worried that, and it fell on Emily's shoulders, and she had too much on her shoulders. So I'd like to, once the files are caught up in the way they're supposed to be, I would like to look back, as far back as we need to see if the supplemental billing was done last year at all. I'm sure some of it was, but was all of it? So that's another thing it's making me nervous. There's a lot of things making me nervous there right now, but we'll.
If the estate's closed, can you do anything about it?
I'm not sure.
Because I'm just thinking, I just went through this whole thing, and once the estate was closed, that was it.
Yeah.
You're done.
Yeah, I had Sue Hannon from Venango County here, 30-plus years experience. We just looked at a chunk this big. And I said, Sue, what's your thoughts here? And just to abbreviate, she said SOL. Possibly was a lot of it, so we'll see.
Well, just so you know, you don't seem nervous. You seem very collected.
Oh.
So that's a good thing.
My real estate. But no, I do. I feel positive about it. We're working hard. We're working well together, the folks in the office right now, and we're very focused on what we need to get done. We're getting to know each other a little bit. They've been through a lot the last year, and so we're getting through that and moving forward and forward only.
And I can't believe I'm gonna say this, but, you know, should we have the staff now do some overtime to try and get some of the other things that are behind caught up?
I asked both of the ladies in the office if they would be interested in increasing their hours at all, and they are not right now.
Well, I mean, you can ask, but
Right,
you also
right.
require it as well.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
Yeah. Jody, we cannot because she's retired and she's only allowed to earn so much. I asked her if she, temporarily I asked her if she wanted to increase her responsibilities or increase her hours, and not at this time, she's not.
Well, that's just a thought, you might want to think this say to Jody.
Sheriff's office has to do that a little bit here and there.
Yeah.
Order people.
Yeah, I mean,
can.
sometimes you do, if you're
Yeah.
falling behind and if you fear you have a risk, with
Yeah.
legal documents that have to be processed to make sure that we're serving the public the way we should,
Exactly.
it might be something that you need to think about doing, so.
Okay.
That's my thought.
Will do.
All right, could you repeat back the last motion that I suggested?
to create one temporary 3-month administrative position at $13.75 for a period of 13 weeks in the Register and Recorder's Office.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion made and properly seconded. Any discussion on that motion?
I think we need to support Lisa at this point, especially. I've been in a position when I came into office, shorthanded, and I know what it was like. So I believe with the circumstances of what she's trying to get a grasp on, I think we need to support her in this.
Do we, are there any other resources that we can pull on that may not have skills?
That was actually something I was going to note, is she didn't just come to us saying, oh, I need more staff. You know, to your credit, you went to other counties, you've had people come in, advise you, I mean, you're putting in Saturdays and Sundays. I didn't want to pre-answer the question, but I did want to give you credit.
Thank you. I'm happy to. It's an honor to be in that position, and I'll work as hard as I can, as long as I have to get it to where I'd like it to be. Even better than a few years ago when I worked there, where it was running fairly stably, but I would like to do even more. There's more I want to do, but we can't touch that yet until we get to where we need to be first, and then think of, you know, improvements that would be great for the community.
Okay, anything more?
May I throw a monkey wrench in your motion? Maybe Pennsylvania labor law doesn't define part-time, but it does say up to 29 hours. And the reason I think we do the 24 is because we have to stick with the 999 over a year's period.
Oh.
So if it's a 3-month time frame, I think we could go to the 29 hours.
That's not a monkey wrench, that's a help.
Well, it changes the motion a
I'll
little bit.
motion to amend my motion to the 29 hours. If I can't remember if I said that or not, but whatever, 29 hours.
29 hours, I'll second that vote, amendment to the motion of the motion.
Okay, well, technically now we have to vote on the amendment first. So, all those in favor of the motion to amend, please state aye.
Aye.
All right, that carries. So now we're back to the main motion, which we belabored, so I think we all understand it, correct?
We do.
So then all those in favor of that motion, please state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. All right, congratulations.
I appreciate you listening. I'm gonna run and pick up my son. Is it okay if I go?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, excuse me.
All right,
Thanks,
so
Ken.
now we'll go into